I had got run over by a truck with a virus. The entire anterior wall or front wall of the heart was paralyzed, and all four of my valves were leaky because of the back pressure. If I did not make a change, I'm probably going to be in full congestive heart failure in the next 2 years and probably dead in 6 years. So my weight went from the 180s to 264 pounds at the highest.
Wow.
Exercise didn't do it. Calorie restriction didn't do it. Being on thyroid replacement didn't do it. Lowering cortisol levels didn't do it. The only thing I found that has helped me reset is.
Welcome, Dr. Phil. How are you?
Hey, Bella, how are you?
So good to have you here. First, I would love for you to introduce yourself.
Well, I'm actually a retired family physician. So a lot of people call me Dr. Phil, which I actually can't use that name because would you believe it's a trademark? He's not a real MD, but he is a good doctor. I was a family physician for a lot of years and then computerized my practice back in the early 90s and actually decided to make a career automating health systems. And I ended up doing that over 70 times, overseeing major projects. Most of them were hundreds of millions of dollars of projects. And I went from being a family physician who practiced under a corporate name of Health Lifestyles PA. And then I ended up going into medical informatics, which is a field of automating medical processes, and became more of a process engineer. So I'm very much into systems. So that tells you a little bit about me.
How did your carnivore journey begin?
Great question. I was super healthy all my life. And I played football in high school at 186. So I was a very lightweight but muscular offensive tackle. And after football, started running, ran through college, usually 2 miles a day, 5 days a week. Was in great health, would run a few 5Ks with my brother. And in 2001, I had got run over by a truck with a virus. I was feeling great. And in sometime in the flu months, I came down with a typical viral infection, achiness, fever, but it was a little more severe than normal. I had night sweats. And I began noticing that I was short of breath, even walking across the room, which was kind of unusual. I finally, with my symptoms, knew this was not good. So I called up one of my friends who was a cardiologist that I used to practice next door to. And he saw me, thought maybe I had coronary artery disease, which I didn't. My coronary arteries were completely clean. But I had something called acute myocarditis, which is an infection of the heart muscle. And it affected my whole heart muscle. In fact, my left ventricle, which is the most important part of your heart, the entire anterior wall or front wall of the heart was paralyzed. It didn't move at all. So my heart was no longer properly pumping blood. Now, what was particularly bad with me was I have always had a pulse of around 44 my whole life since high school. So not because I was a great athlete, just because my brother, my dad, and I all had very, very low heart rates just inherently. Okay. So the two things you do in cardiomyopathy is when the heart muscle is diseased by a myocarditis and the heart muscle is no longer functioning normal. And about half the people end up getting a heart transplant or dying of what's called sudden death from an arrhythmia. So usually ventricular fibrillation. And when I saw the cardiologist, he checked me out, and I was actually in something called bigeminy, which people that are in the medical field will know. It's where every other beat is not coming from the top of your heart, but it's coming from the bottom of your heart. And I was functioning with this barely. I just couldn't do anything. But I was very, very sick, got over the acute viral phase, but my heart was in a bad thing. And they treat this with two drugs. One's called an ACE inhibitor, a drug called lisinopril, and the other one's a beta blocker. And the idea is you have to reduce the pumping resistance that the heart is working against because the heart muscle can't pump effectively you have to reduce the resistance of your blood vessels so that the heart doesn't work as hard. And because you're full of adrenaline and cortisol, you give a beta blocker to blunt the epinephrine or adrenaline so that you don't have these fatal arrhythmias, so you don't drop dead of ventricular tachycardia. Now, I told you I had a pulse of 44, so you can imagine if you know how a beta blocker works, you're not on the right dose until your heart rate has gone down. And so we kept pumping it up, higher dose, until I dropped my heart rate to 36.
Oh my goodness.
And my blood pressure was running in the 70s to low 80, sometimes as low as 46, my top number, down to 30s and 40s on the bottom number.
Whoa.
Very.
So you can imagine, and I was traveling all over the country, automating hospitals and doing all this, had to be super careful to not get up so quick. And,
All right.
I was wheeling luggage through airports and walking around with computer bags and working 80-hour weeks and crazy things. But fortunately, I didn't die. And my heart muscle completely recovered over 3 years.
Okay.
And all the paralysis of my heart went away. And I was only left with a little scarring at the bottom of my heart, which was pretty insignificant. But because of the stress of the virus and all the cortisol and everything, it actually burned out my thyroid. And so I became hypothyroid acutely with the illness. So here I had hypothyroid, a heart that wasn't functioning, and I wasn't exercising. So, and I was eating on the road all the time. So my weight went from the 180s to 264 pounds at the highest.
Wow.
Isn't that crazy? And you can
Wow.
imagine that
Wow.
weight is not good to be moving around when your
Right.
heart's good. But God allowed me to survive, and I made it through. I ended up getting down to about 230 pounds from 264. And I stayed about 230, bounced between 230 and 240 for the next several years.
That with
And
calorie restriction, calories in, calories out.
yeah, calorie restriction, all kinds of things, trying things. I was on Atkins for a while. I was just trying anything I could think of and seeing if my body would respond. But I really could never get my metabolism to where I needed it to be.
How old
Okay,
are you,
so
Dr.
what's that?
How old?
67,
How tall are you? Sorry,
6 foot.
6 foot. Okay.
6 foot even. So I did everything I knew to do, but I was pretty stuck. So finally in 2016, I visited a local doctor who was running a weight loss program, medically supervised, using protein sparing modified fast, and did a 6-week program on 500 to 700 calories, was completely compliant. But it was hard, but I dropped from 232 to 192
Oh,
in
wow.
6 weeks. And I really maintained my weight great for about a year. It was really not a problem. But I found that my BMR was not holding, and I was having to reduce.
Yeah.
And I got down to 1,500 calories a day, tracking everything since 2016, down to 1,500 calories a day at 6 foot, which is nothing.
I like to call that toddler macros.
Thank you. It was a toddler. If I had been 4 foot tall, it would have been great. But a 6 foot tall was not sustainable.
Right.
And my weight just started creeping up. Finally, my pulse became so low. I had retired that month, and my pulse had gotten so low, down to 28, that I finally begged the doctor for a pacemaker. I could barely stay awake.
Oh my goodness.
My body had slipped into what we call metabolic syndrome. And so my waist was over 40 inches. My systemic blood pressure on my arm was not high, but on echocardiogram, my pulmonary hypertension, which is the pressure between the right and left ventricle, was high. And all 4 of my valves were leaky because of the back pressure. My triglycerides had creeped up to over 150. HDL cholesterol had dropped from the 45 range down to 35. And I had had a couple blood sugars that were in the high 90s. But basically, I had 5 out of 5 criteria for metabolic syndrome. And for people that don't know, metabolic syndrome is basically prediabetes. So your insulin resistance and your risk of cardiovascular disease, coronary artery disease, and stroke is 6 times higher when you have metabolic syndrome. So that's 600% increase in coronary artery disease. Now, I had no existing coronary artery disease, so I was very blessed from that stream. But with my echocardiogram showing this, what we call diastolic dysfunction, it's a form where the heart is working against increasing pressure on the right chamber and the left chamber. So it's having a hard time. It's working hard, and all 4 of these valves being what we call incompetent or leaky just put undue stress on my cardiovascular system. So I needed to go back on the ACE inhibitor. I knew if I did not do anything in May, if I did not make a change, I'm probably going to be in full congestive heart failure in the next 2 years and probably dead in 6 years.
Wow.
So that's pretty good motivation.
Yeah, no doubt.
And we
How do you
always
know
say
where to
to
look?
carnivores, you got to have a big why, right?
Yeah. Yes.
So this was my start of my journey. I started on keto and started watching a lot of YouTube videos. But within a week, I was just like, these people are nuts. All they're worried about is how to hack their menu to get sweets and desserts 3 meals a day. And I said, this is not keto. This is something else. With all my metabolic and physiology thing and diet stuff that I knew what modern day keto is not what I was trained that keto is.
The addictive was still there in keto, sweet and fat together, having that sweet fat combination.
Yeah, it's a sweet keto, right?
Mm-hmm.
Sweet keto will kill you.
Mm-hmm.
Right? It's the forbidden fruit in the Garden of Eden. Right?
Yes.
For all the busy carnivore mamas and papas out there who want a convenient yet clean way to shop for all of your kitchen and home needs, I highly recommend Thrive Market. Here's my monthly Thrive Market box, and I'll show you what staples I usually get. Thrive Market is basically an online membership-based grocery store where you can shop for all of the best non-toxic carnivore snacks, but also home staples. I always stock up on their dishwasher detergent packs. This is from their very own line called Rosie, and everything that they have through Rosie is non-toxic, eco-friendly, and hypoallergenic. This really does the job to clean off any grease and fat from my carnivore dishes. This is another staple also from the Rosie line, laundry detergent powder. I like the powder just because it is much more cost effective and I can control exactly how much I want for each of my laundry loads. I always get their beef sticks because Steak and Butter Guy loves them as a snack. This is from their very own Thrive Market brand, and it is a lot cheaper than the famous Chomps brand. We always get their Redmond's real salt because it is cheapest on their Thrive Market site. This is just the best salt that you can get, and carnivores love this brand. I personally like to shop through the Thrive Market app because you can select just the ketogenic diet filter and it will show you everything that is ketogenic friendly. And a lot of those options are also carnivore friendly. So it's great to just filter out any vegan, plant-based type of things that we are not interested in. You can get all your carnivore goodies for the guaranteed lowest price because if you do see lower prices anywhere else, Thrive Market will always price match for you. And shipping is always free for orders over $49. You all can get 30% off your first order plus a free gift worth up to $60 by going to the URL shown on the screen, thrivemarket.com/steakandbuttergal. I've also linked them down below in the description box.
So how did you get to carnivore from there? So you were like,
yeah, great question. So I'm watching all these videos and it's like, this is not right. This is not right. I think YouTube saved my life because all of a sudden a video shows up of Homestead How, which made no sense to me. Why is a Homestead video showing up? But it's Carrie Mann, the head of Homestead How, interviewing Shaun White, who you guys know.
Yes.
And it was Shaun telling Carrie his story. And it was like, what is this? This is a crazy story. This can't possibly be true. And they were talking about Dr. Berry and Dr. Kim Berry, and I watched multiple Kim Berry videos. And I really related to him as a fellow family physician.
Mhm.
And then from him, I saw Anthony Chafee in Australia, and it was like, oh my goodness, I loved him. He was just so easy to understand, and he was talking about the literature and talking about the studies. And August 3rd of last year, 2023, I jumped on the carnivore bandwagon. I believe Dr. Chafee, all you do is eat meat, animal products, water, a little electrolyte, salt if you need it. And after 90 days, I kind of stalled. I went from 229 to 230 down to low 200s. And everything stopped. And I sat there for a month. Felt good. Clothes were better, but still had quite a bit of punch. And I heard Todd Bachnes on a live stream with Carrie. And Todd was talking about priming and talking about steak and butter game. And it's like, okay, Todd's story is incredible. I got to go back and go down the rabbit hole with Bella in the game. So I started looking for everything that you guys did on priming. So I watched the three of you I probably have your lab tests memorized now and your calcium scores and everything. I mean, I just related so much to you. And I was one of those shorts on Carrie's 24-hour live stream at the end. And the first time I saw Raymond and Coach Emily were on the live stream, because Bella brought you both on the live stream. Because I thought Steak and Butter Gal was only Bella. And that's when I first realized you guys were a team.
It's a gang.
It's the gang. Yes, it's the gang. And so anyway, I joined the Steak and Butter Gang in October 31st. So about 90 days in, as I said, started priming immediately. Couldn't even wait for the start date of the month. Just watched the early October videos and jumped on board and primed and loved it, and really solved my metabolism problem. And a month later, I had all my 6-month follow-up for my blood work, and all of my markers for metabolic syndrome were gone.
That quick.
That quick. 4 months. So my HDL went up from 35 to 48.
Nice.
Wow. You are that low? 35.
Nice.
Wow.
Yeah. I went down from 40-inch waist to 34-inch waist on my shoulders.
Whoa.
So really rapid weight loss. And then I came into this at 4 months in my height of ignorance, saying, what's this priming about? I watched every weekly video for the month of October before I started priming, and I did the first 2 weeks of priming. And I'm convinced that I needed that to reset my basal metabolic rate. And I think that is solely exercise didn't do it, calorie restriction didn't do it, being on thyroid replacement didn't do it, lowering cortisol levels didn't do it. The only thing I found that has helped me reset is the priming.
Priming on the carnivore diet is a 2 to 3 week long period of time where the person prioritizes eating 3 meals every day. It preps the body to really reap the full benefits and healing of intermittent fasting and extended fasting. Coach Raymond and Coach Emily have an entire 90-day priming, feasting, and fasting plan, tried and tested on thousands of carnivores now. One of the best benefits, of course, is fat loss and body recomposition, and we see it in our members of all ages. Both men and women see their bodies transform, lose fat, lose inflammation, and get stronger. This is our very own member, Limitless Lindy, who has lost 500 pounds just by priming and basic intermittent fasting. If you are interested in accessing the full priming, feasting, and fasting protocol taught by Coach Raymond and Coach Emily, feel free to join us in the Steak and Butter Gang challenges, where this entire program is taught. You will have access to weekly classes to troubleshoot with the coaches, as well as weekly schedules to easily follow for each day's eating plan. To join the next challenge in the Steak and Butter Gang, just go to the URL shown on the screen, sbgmeetup.com, or check out the links down below in the description box.
Wow.
So I think my message is for any chronic undereater, and I was chronically undereating. I mean, I was still, a lot of days before I joined SPG, I was still eating maybe a ribeye a day, and that's all. And a 16-ounce ribeye for a guy my size, I don't know how many calories that is. Not enough.
Enough. Yeah.
But it filled me, and I couldn't eat more. But now I can eat 3 pounds of pork belly. So I think priming is probably the most thing. And Raymond, I really give you all the credit for really investigating that, and Bella and Emily just accepting it for what it is, because you guys are all consistent. I call you the Dave Ramsey of carnivore, because you are always giving the same message over and over and over. You got to reset, and eat like it's your job. I just keep repeating that to the newbies on the SPG chats, because that's what they need to hear. And you need to say that every month, that eat like it's your job. It's probably the most important message. And the thing that triggered it for me was Raymond said, well, I studied this with 700 individuals first.
Yeah.
And, maybe not a peer-reviewed, double-blinded, published study, but as Dr. Kiltz likes to say, our good friend Dr. Kiltz, the accumulated anecdotal stories is what's important with carnivore. Because at some point, when can you say 700 people is not a significant number? In healthcare, we do studies with 30 people and then prescribe a medicine to you that's been tested on 30 people, or an intervention. And as you know, most of the dietary nutritional literature hasn't even been peer-reviewed double-blinded studies. They've been epidemiological studies. Well, I asked you, well, Emily, tell me what you ate in the last year. And I'm going to write that down. And Raymond, what did you eat for the last year? And Bella, now we're going to look at your health over the last year and say, what happened? Well, I don't believe in Ouija boards either. So it's just crazy what people make scientific decisions on. And I'm very scientific, and I just think it's crazy.
Raymond has coached one-on-one in that ballpark of the 700 plus, and that's not even counting members in our community who have gone through the program. We're in thousands and thousands at this point, because we've been teaching this in a group environment now for 3 years. And so I love that anecdotal made a big impact.
Were you scared of the fasting portion at all? It looked like you were ready to jump in.
No, I had done some fasting, but I don't have any problem doing a 72-hour fast. I've done 3 of them since I've been carnivore. That's kind of easy for me. I find the worst fast to do is a 24-hour, 24 to 32. I really struggle.
I do too.
I don't really get in my groove until I'm about 36 hours out, and then I feel good.
Yes.
But I don't like to push more than 72 hours more than once a quarter. When I feel like fasting, I'm most likely going to go to a 42 to 48 hour fast. And that's what I like to do. And I find those extremely easy. So I had all this blood work done, but one test went up. What do you guys think that is?
Well, I hope it was your LDL.
It was my LDL.
I hope it was LDL. Yeah, it's good.
It was my LDL.
Yeah.
So my total cholesterol went up to 307. LDL cholesterol went up to 243.
Oh, so that's the one I bumped everything up. Yeah.
Yeah, but my triglycerides were down to 81.
Wow.
Nice. And I told you my HDL went up to 48. My blood sugar was normal. My A1C was 5.0.
Currently, as of that post period, do you have any of the 5 markers of metabolic syndrome?
As of 4 months on carnivore, I have 0 markers. I blame my waist size going down from Dr. O'Mara's sprinting, and which I do on an exercise bike at the YMCA. I do like 10-second sprints on a exercise bike. So I have proven you don't need to go out there and run. I tried doing the sprints running on the treadmill, and I thought it was going to get thrown across the room. So won't do that again, because I can't control turning it out of fast mode to slow mode fast enough.
Well, with a 34-inch waist, I'm thinking, where's the visceral fat?
Well, yeah, I know. It kind of went away. My primary care doctor sent me a note. It's like, oh, your cholesterol is 307. You've got to go on statins immediately.
Of course.
And I said, well, I'll see you in a month. We'll talk.
Nice.
And my cardiologist said, oh, your cholesterol's high. I want to prescribe a statin. And I said, well, look, I came in here 6 months ago. My risk of coronary artery disease was 6 times normal. And now that's totally gone away. What do you think my risk factor with that LDL cholesterol, being a 60 plus male with 0 coronary artery disease proven by your catheterization, which I had repeated when the pacemaker got put in? What do you think my risk is of coronary artery disease? Increased risk from coronary artery disease. So what do you guys think my increased risk is based on all the studies of the drug companies, which we're not going to question them, but if you actually go into the studies and look on the tables by age with 0 coronary artery disease, so we're talking primary prevention, we're not talking secondary prevention, people who have coronary artery disease and then have high cholesterol. We're talking people that have no coronary artery disease, already made it to 60, and all of a sudden have a high LDL.
According to Western medicine?
According to
Yeah.
Western medicine,
Yeah.
you would think it should be at least 2 times to have anything worried about.
Yeah. Wouldn't you think that? It's
Yeah.
1%.
What?
2 times would be
That's crazy.
200% increase. It's 1%.
Well, here's one instance where I agree with the Western medicine chart.
I know, right? So it's almost like they know that how unimportant that LDL is. Really?
Exactly. And it's you
Wow.
got to go in and look at the studies. And I went in armed with all the studies printed out, the peer review, double-blinded studies, and he looked at it and
Yeah,
And-
that's a reason to put you on statins. 1%.
no, he after he saw that, he said,
"Oh, okay, right."
well, you're absolutely right. You don't have coronary artery disease. Most of my patients that come through here have coronary artery disease. I just need the statin.
Can you come to all my appointments with me now?
I know, right?
Just call
You
him.
got to
Bring
pay
him
for
on
the
phone.
flight. You got to pay for the flight, Emily.
That's it.
I'd love to come to your appointments. I live in Florida. Did I remind you of that? But the point is me taking a statin would have a 25% chance of putting me back into metabolic syndrome. So my risk of reversing back into metabolic syndrome was 25 times higher than my risk of coronary artery disease.
Wow.
And this is probably the most important thing that I can share with you tonight.
Yes.
Absolutely.
That
Yes.
you got to know what your risk is and how it applies to you and not just knee jerk. So the cardiologist said, you're absolutely right. He said, I'd still feel better if you were on the statin, but you're armed with the science and I know you're not going to take it. So why am I bothered?
I
So
love it.
2 weeks later, I go to the primary care doctor who already has the prescription written for the statin. And I told him the story and he said, well, if your cardiologist is okay with it, so am I.
That's right.
So
It's powerful.
I'm not going to push the statin either. That kind of gives you the reason why I'm carnivore. And I stayed extremely, extremely strict for the first 7 months of carnivore. I did not play around with this. I did not have a day I fell off the wagon. I was completely committed.
Dr. Phil, your blood work and how you felt, did it match? So when you reversed everything, did you feel the reversal? Like you felt better, or did things change?
Yeah. So that's funny that there really isn't any symptoms of metabolic profile. It's more of a group of measurements. It's when you go down the road with insulin resistance, get into diabetes. Now you got neuropathy of your feet. Now you got gastroparesis of your stomach. Now you have visual issues. You have kidney issues. You know, it kills you slowly, but it's like putting the frog in the pot and turning the water up. You know, you just sit there until you boil because there's nothing to make you want to jump out of it because it feels so good and nice and warm and comfy. So metabolic syndrome is actually a siren song of everything's okay. And that's why it's such a silent killer for so many Americans. And we know now that something like 80 to 88% of all Americans have at least 2 markers of metabolic syndrome, which is criminal.
Yeah.
And most people don't know what it is, or they've heard about it, or they think it's nothing to worry about, or the doctor says, take this pill, which doesn't really reverse it. It just kind of masks it. The viral cardiomyopathy was something that nature did to me.
Right.
Everything I had in May was what I did to myself.
Yes.
So I had to take responsibility for it. It was my weight. It was my diet. It was my activity level. It was everything that I was doing. And so I felt more of a responsibility. I mean, I'm a scientist. I can read literature. I know what needs to go on. And I'm so helpful that there's so many. I don't like to call you guys influencers. I think you're really experts just from your experience. You're practitioners of the art of carnivore. And
Oh,
So
wow.
that's great.
I'll take
No.
that.
I like that.
yeah, I won't call you alchemists, but you are alchemists in a way that you're turning the lead in our body to gold,
Oh, that's
right?
sweet. Yes.
So maybe I'll start calling. I already call you the wizard of priming. So the alchemist of carnivore. So that's a
Love
great
it.
name.
I love
I think we should have T-shirts made. I have had this chronic folliculitis of my scalp for ever since I had the myocarditis. Just an inflammatory condition, different than your psoriasis, Bella, and your acne. And
It's not dandruff? Is dandruff or
no, it's not dandruff. It's
No?
you
Okay.
literally the hair and follicles would get pussy.
Oh, I
Okay.
have yeah, I had
It's
that. Yeah.
not. It's not like HS like Kelly Hogan has. It's basically you get your roots of your hair follicles get infected,
I know what you're talking about.
and
Yes.
so I literally have painful scalp pustules on my scalp.
Mhm.
And the day I started carnivore, August 3rd, I felt another breakout coming, and I said, I'm going to wait a day because I started carnivore today. I don't want to put tetracycline or doxycycline on my stomach because I'm eating differently. I want to see what happens. And believe it or not, the next day, the next morning, I woke up and it had reversed. I had no pain the very next day, the very
Wow.
next day. And over the next week, all the lesions healed up. So the pain went away in one day, but the lesions all healed up. I never, first time in 7 years, I hadn't had to take doxycycline. And I've not had to take doxycycline since. High carbohydrate diets feed the bacteria that live in our hair follicles and our pores. And
Yes.
they go crazy, just like cancer cells feed on sugar. Acne bacteroides that lives in our pores and our hair follicles, that just goes wild with high carbohydrate diets. And so it would be really interesting to see how many kids with teenage acne wouldn't
Oh,
have teenage acne if they were
For
carnivore.
sure.
100%.
Yes.
That's the first thing I thought of. And I see it in my kids when they're kind of eating low
Right.
carb. When they're not eating low carb, it shows up on their skin for sure.
I love how my clothes look. I don't look frumpy anymore.
Yeah.
Mhm.
You know, and I'm in
Solid,
suits and
yeah.
all that I were in long before I got sick. Believe it or not, some of them I actually had around, and they look great. And I like to dress up more now. And we live in Florida, which is really casual, but I'm into wearing T-shirts, which I never did because they'd hang over my big gut. And now I like them and tuck them in, and I feel with my 34-inch waist that feels good.
Yeah,
I
feeling
love it.
vibrant through
Yeah.
all the different decades and enjoying clothes and fashion. And, to me, it's just such an energizing way to live and way to exist. I appreciate you so much in our community calls, our non-scale victory calls.
Yes.
You are so encouraging in the chat box. And I'm always like honored and humbled that a career physician would,
Listen to us.
feel motivated to be a part of what we're
Yeah.
doing. And so
Yes.
I just feel curious, what does community mean to you?
So remember, my DNA is I went to medical school to be a family physician, and I thought I would be a family physician my whole life. But medicine kind of left me, became more corporate, more
Mhm.
ridden by community guidelines that everybody wants everyone treated the same.
All right.
And I really saw where medicine was going, and I call it the socialization of medicine, the government control of it. And I saw where medicine was going, and I had automated my practice because at the time there were 50,000 possible drug-drug interactions in the 90s, early 90s, that I just didn't feel competent being able to manage 50,000
Right.
potential complications. And I thought computers could do that better. So I put in probably the first electronic medical record in the state of Florida, certainly the first one in Tampa Bay,
Wow.
and just began to see. I printed all my scripts. They were routed. I had good problem list. I tracked patients. I have a lot of snowbirds, and when they went north every year, I would printed records that were legible and hand them to the patient, and they would take them up to Michigan and Ohio and New York, and they'd always come back and say, "Oh, my doctor so much appreciates you sending records with us because we don't have to request them." And I said, "Well, it's important that you have the records." So what drives me,
Humbling.
Emily, is this desire to be the best doctor I can be, and that everyone deserves good health. And if I can contribute just a little to someone's confusion and remove that, help them have a little understanding. And the most important thing is I repeat all of your guys' advice to people, because you are the experts. I am not the expert, and I don't intend to be the expert. Now, maybe 5 years from now, like Bella, she'll be a 10-year carnivore, but I'll be a 5-year carnivore. I'll be a 6-year carnivore, I guess, 5.5. But maybe my opinion will count for something, but right now it doesn't count for anything.
It's the power of
So
community.
humbling.
All of us together.
Dr. Bull.
Seriously, so
Yes, it
humbling.
is. That's right.
Because what I like about your program is that you provide tools. And the other night I said, I call it bullets on your belt.
Yes.
And I always talk about this because I've taught this to my kids, and I've taught this to people I've mentored through my life. And I've mentored a lot of people. I say, think about the Frito Bandito, if you're old enough to know who that is, but a Mexican bandolera across here with bullets in your belt. But your bandolera does not have the same size bullet, because you don't just have Yosemite Sam's 6-shooter. You have your elephant bullet size, your BBs for the crows, your 22 calibers for the rabbits, your 30-06 for the deer. You have maybe an atomic bomb or a grenade launcher. But the point is, your level of expertise develops, but you have to know not only what you know, but you have to know what size bullet you need for what problem. And that is what I call putting bullets in your belt. And in 1993, one of my mentors was sharing me the information that if you read 3 books in a subject, you know more than 95% of people on that subject. And if you read 5 books on a subject, you know more than 99% of the people.
Wow.
So I took that to heart. And in 1993, I began reading 1 nonfiction book a week. And I did that for 20 years.
Oh, wow.
And I read 3 to 5 books on a topic, or 3 to 5 books by an author who is an expert in something. And then after I read 5 books, I would move on to another topic. Yeah. I don't ever want to come over as the expert until I've earned enough experience. But you guys have such a head start, I'll never catch you. And you guys are wonderful. I don't see any flaws with what you do. You're probably a little kinder to people that continually mess up and then get discouraged. I just wish people would wake up and see the self-sabotage, because I'm running this race for my life, and self-sabotage will kill me.
Yes.
But that's the truth.
Yes.
And I know that, and my doctors know that, and
Yes.
now you guys know that, and maybe someone will hear this. And when you're running the race of your life, you got to do it to win.
Well said. I think we should firstly celebrate Dr. Phil and everything that he has put into the carnivore community.
Thank you.
But also, I have to ask, for the viewers watching your story right now, and they have not yet started carnivore, what are your best tips to get them started?
Oh, that's a great question. I have lots of tips. So number one, you got to have a big why. My why, I think I've made very clear. I'm running for my life. I will be dead in 6. I would have been dead in 6 years doing what I was doing. And at 67, my dad's 94, still going strong, lives alone. I have incredible genes in my family. Had I not been derailed with a viral infection that turned my life upside down, I would be moving for that 120-year goal. I may not make it, but I think I've got a better chance on carnivore than not having it. So that's my why. Next is you got to immerse yourself in a positive carnivore environment. For many people, that needs to be a community. That could be a YouTube community that you're regularly listening to. It could be a support group like SBG or Steak and Butter Gang. I felt like I was doing good in the YouTube carnivore community until I wasn't doing good.
Yeah.
And when you're not doing good and you're hitting a wall, it's time to rethink what you're doing. And it just happened that God put Todd Bachmus with a message at Carrie's site and at the right time, at the right moment, and then sent me down the Bella rabbit hole and the three of you. And I'm so appreciative because you were actually what I was looking for, which was a way to install that chronic undereating that I was doing. So if you're a chronic undereater, probably the smartest thing to do is start SBG earlier and get the priming out of the way. And I held off until the 4th month to buy Chisel because I wanted to get through your 90-day. And then I bought Chisel. And it's like, I really goofed up not buying Chisel earlier. I thought it was going to be too much information, but it was actually so good listening to your framework of everything. And I even got excited, Emily, by your interpretation of Mindy Peltz's book on fasting like a girl, because you were just like so cool and calm. And you were telling all of the ways to apply what's in her book to a carnivore way of eating. And I went out and bought the book. I bought Fasting Like a Girl, and I read it cover to cover in like 2 days. It was a real page turn. But I was reading it with Emily saying, now remember this, that you got to apply this. And I had no female hormones to fix. But
right.
you motivated me to get that book because you didn't just do a book review. You actually say, here's what you need to know if you're going to read this book. And that's the way I approach the entire carnivore community is if you listen to too many influencers, you're going to get too many ideas of what to do. Get in that community, immerse yourself. And I probably overdid it. I probably listened to 2 hours of carnivore videos a day for the first 30 days. I was just consuming everything I could. Your videos are just hitting the spot. And you just do such a great job. So you seem to know what I need to hear for the week. And I think it's probably feedback from the group. You hear things and you kind of
Always, yep.
get ideas that come up. And if you're in the Steak and Butter Gang, you really appreciate what you're doing because it is so valuable. And everyone in the community, once you get there, you're so calm and you see things so clearly because you don't have brain fog. And I just wish more Americans and people around the world would just be so much more curious in their lives to why do I have all these health problems? Why am I taking medications? When I was a practicing physician, I said, if you're on more than 5 medicines, you're going to have more problems from side drug-drug interactions from that 6th medicine than any benefit you can give. Knowing that more than 5 meds are going to put you in more problems than they're gaining, it's no wonder our society is so sick right now, especially in Western medicine. And it's just criminal. So recognize if you're on more than 5 medicines, you should be curious on why that is. And it's probably because your metabolic health is screwed up. And you can reset that and get that resolved. It might take you a month. It might take you 4 months like me. It might take you 2 years. But leaving it where it's at is expensive, is likely to cause other problems down the road, and is not doing anything to really protect your long-term health. It's merely masking something that you're not dealing with. And just because you're a carnivore influencer on YouTube doesn't make you an expert. Having a track record, having an experience, having a credible program does make you an expert. And you guys are there. I've looked at every aspect of your program. I think the only thing I'd like to see is a more section on men's health, because I think it's a topic that needs to be
Yes, I
developed.
would love that.
I feel like
Yes.
you guys are sexist. You do all this stuff on women's health. And
Uh-oh, getting called
Working
out.
on it still.
We'll work on that.
So
We'll work
if I
on
can
that.
help you with that, you let me know. But let's
I'd
get
love that.
Okay.
a male health expert on who's a carnivore. Let's find them. And
Okay.
maybe a monthly call on
Absolutely.
men's health, because I'm sitting there. You got to love Mindy Peltz. I mean, her constructs on fasting are excellent, and she's grown on the work of Jason Fung and everyone, and really is put it in a way that women can understand. And she's brilliant. I love her book, but we guys like to tune that out. I like to hear Raymond talk about his topic that I'm not going to say on this broadcast, because my family's going to watch it.
Oh,
Well,
right.
you'll get it. You'll get it in SBG. Raymond is
Yes.
very
It's
very
something like Morning
overcoming.
Forest.
Yes, Morning Forest. I love that.
That's right.
I love talking about it. But yes, you're right.
Emily
We
knows
should
what I'm
get
talking
down
about,
there a
'cause
lot
I
she-
more.
know.
The last tip for beginners is just learn the fundamentals. Don't get so hung up on all the specific little things. Just start out by eating meat and animal products, beef, butter, bacon, and eggs, ruminant meat. Eliminate all the carbs, the fruits, the vegetables. Go pretty pure for 3 months, and then reintroduce things and see what doesn't set well with you. And don't reintroduce anything more than once a week, so you can learn what's trying for your body to thrive on and not causing you any illness. And I think you need a week to see the results of it. I don't think a day is good enough.
That's like an ultimate guide right there on how to start carnivore perfectly. I just want to thank you, Dr. Phil.
That's awesome.
You are incredible. I
That's
will make
awesome.
sure to everyone who's watching this video to link all of Dr. Phil's socials, how to connect with him, where to find him.
I
down
have no
below.
socials.
Oh, okay.
You have to find him in SBG.
Come to
Sorry.
Find him in
That's right.
The
SBG,
only
guys.
place you find me, I am off the grid. The only place you will
Yeah.
find me is with
Good
the
for
steak
you.
and butter game. And the thing I like about SBG is that you're on a private network. So
That's right.
I think for anyone that's looking for a group to get involved with, that's the number one thing for me, because there's no haters
Yep.
on SBG. So
You're right.
Right.
Pure
Yes.
love.
yeah, it's pure love, and it's a very welcoming advice. And I bet you never thought this interview would go this long, but I'm a windbag, so.
No, this was wonderful.
every minute.
A treasure of
Yes.
information.
Absolutely.
We're
You're so
fortunate
sweet,
to have
Emily.
you. So thank you.
And Bella, keep doing what you're doing. You've put together an A team.
Aw.
Doctor recommended.
I
Thank
love
you
it.
so much. What a
you.
compliment.
Yes.
If you also feel like you can benefit from the support and accountability of a carnivore community, I welcome you all to join the Steak and Butter Gang. You will have access to both Coach Raymond and Coach Emily, and also be able to ask your questions to phenomenal carnivore doctors every single week. We also have amazing daily SBG open chat meetings where you can hang out with fellow carnivore members and get the support and camaraderie you need to stay on track. For more details and to directly sign up for our next 30-day carnivore challenge, feel free to visit the URL shown on the screen, sbgmeetup.com, or check out the links down below in the description box. If you have any questions, struggles, or topic requests for future videos on my channel, you can also feel free to comment them down below in the comment section, and I will make sure to help out and take note. If you are looking for a cheap and convenient way to shop for carnivore staples and snacks, I highly recommend you check out Thrive Market just by going to the URL shown on the screen, thrivemarket.com/steak and butter gal. Finally, before I wrap up, I just wanted to shout out something that I have been incorporating every single day to protect my eyes from blue light, and that is wearing blue light blocking glasses. These blue light blocking glasses are from Bon Charge, and they're the only ones that I wear every day now. These red ones are maximum protection, and these yellow ones are medium protection. I pop on this red pair whenever it gets dark outside, or whenever I'm on my laptop or phone, and these yellow ones I wear in late afternoon, especially if I know it's going to be a long day of working in front of my laptop. BonCharge also has other incredible biohacking products on their website, like this infrared sauna blanket that I got from them. This blanket is great for anyone who wants to reduce soreness or inflammation after a workout or a long work day. It wraps around you fully 360 degrees. All you have to do is plug it in, choose your settings, lie down, and enjoy the benefits. I usually spend about 15 minutes in the blanket when I'm taking breaks from steak and butter gang meetings or filming, and I definitely notice less puffiness in my skin, as well as lower stress levels, which is really useful for my day-to-day life. If you're interested in these biohacking tools, I'll be sure to link all of my favorites from BonCharge down below in the description box, alongside my discount code, which is SBGAL, for 15% off at checkout. Thank you all so much for watching the video. I will see you in the next one. SBG out.